Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inspired Adventures podcast. If you're just joining us, I'm Michael and I'm one of the co-founders of Inspired Adventures. In this episode today, we have something really special for you. Starting last summer, we began working with a group called The Outlet in Springfield, Illinois, which provides after-school learning activities, summer camps for students who are trying to build up self-confidence and become better adapted to the world around them. They're a pretty amazing group and we've really enjoyed working with them. And through our work with them, we began to talk about building a portion of our podcast, which was designed for 8 to 13-year-old learners, people who are really beginning to get really interested in science and want to know more about the world around them. So today, we're going to go ahead and launch that. We're also going to introduce our new narrator, Kayla Windelspecht, who is my daughter. But Kayla is also an ecologist who is finishing up her master's degree at Colorado State University. And Kayla has been with us for a while, and you probably haven't met her yet, but many of our virtual tours, a lot of the writing that happens on our site, a lot of the project management is associated with our student research groups in Belize, interact a lot with Kayla. I think you're going to really enjoy this, and I want to introduce you to Kayla and our first inspiring animal, and I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to guess what our first inspiring animal is going to be, but we'll see. Hi, everyone. I'm here today with Kayla, and Kayla is our project manager at Inspired Adventures. And what that means as being a project manager is that she basically does all the work behind the scenes for almost everything that happens on our websites, virtual tours. She does writing for us. She does research work. But today, I'm really excited to have her with me here today to launch our Inspiring Animals program. So before we get into Inspiring Animals, I want to go ahead and have Kayla introduce herself and tell us a little bit about who she is.
Hi, everyone. I am Kayla Windelspecht. That last name might sound a little familiar to you. And I am a biologist and ecologist, currently working as a project manager for Inspire Adventures and with a history of working in science communication.
This is really kind of a fun idea that we've been talking about for a long time. As biologists, one of our fun things is being able to go out and explore and learn new things. And throughout our experiences in Belize and now also in other parts of the world, such as Portugal, we've managed to come across different animals that really have sparked our imagination, okay, in our desire to go learn things. And that's really the fun of being a biologist. And so today is probably not any surprise to anybody here on the podcast that we're going to start with one of our most inspirational animals. And that, of course, is going to be the jaguars. Okay. And today with the jaguars, we're going to learn a little bit about why we study jaguars and some fun facts about those. So, Kayla, why jaguars? Why are we in love with jaguars at IE?
Well, first of all, what you need to know about me and my dad right now is that we're both huge cat people. So that is influencing our fascination with jaguars just a little bit. But for those of us here at IE, what's really drawn us to jaguars is not just how beautiful and impressive these animals are, but also how important they are for the rainforest and for the cultures of the places that they exist in. And we're going to be talking a little bit today about biology and ecology of the jaguars, and also about how people and jaguars interact in the places where both of them live, and how people can help jaguars, and how Inspire Adventures, we hope to inspire you to be able to help the jaguars as well.
That's great, Kayla. And I just want to take a moment, since this is our first one, and we are talking about jaguars, about for each of us to kind of tell really quickly about our first experience with a jaguar. I know that you have a really good story, and so do I. So we'll start with you, of course, talking about your first real interactions with, the jaguar of the rainforest.
Yes. So the first time I saw a jaguar in person, my father locked me in a cage with one outside of it. And
I did do that, yes.
Yeah. So this was at the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center, which are our amazing friends and partners in Belize. And what they do, and we might get into this a little bit more a little later on, is that they have a really amazing Jaguar rehabilitation program. And some of the jaguars that they work with are unable to be re-released into the wild. And so they become ambassadors for their species. So they stay at the Belize Zoo and they help to spread knowledge and education about their species and also just have people meet the jaguars. And one of the things that you can do at the Belize Zoo is something called a Jaguar experience. So it isn't quite what I made it sound like a couple minutes ago, but you do get to meet the jaguars relatively close up, and you're with the keepers the entire time. You are not actually going you are not face to face with the jaguar in the exhibit. That would be quite dangerous for reasons that we'll probably get into. It is always important to recognize that these are wild animals, no matter how cute and cuddly they might look sometimes. They are not like our house cats. But at the Belize Zoo, you can see them very close up. And this was a really amazing experience for me to be this close to such a beautiful and interesting animal. And that was my first experience. And I know, Dad, you have had your own experiences with the Belize and Belize Zoo jaguars as well.
Absolutely. And before we go on from that, I want to tell everybody that you are pretty much up close and personal with these jaguars. You are in a metal cage inside of their enclosure with the keeper. And the jaguar is usually above you or standing around you while the keeper is explaining things. It's about as close as anybody would want to get to a jaguar, okay, in any way or form. And yes, I have put both of my children in those cages. It's an amazing behavioral adaptation on their part afterwards. So, anyways, my experience is a little bit different. I first met Junior Buddy, one of the ambassadors at the Belize Zoo, during one of my first trips, probably now well over a decade ago, to the zoo. And I always wanted to be a big cat biologist. I always wanted to be a veterinarian that worked with big cats. And life choices take you other directions. But one of the things I would do is every time I went to the zoo, I would go back. The first thing I would do is go back and see Junior Buddy. And he was always sitting on top of his cage. And he was the master of the slow blink. He would just sit there and give you the slowest blinks. And I used to just imagine that he knew who I was. Okay, which is silly, of course. But I really became fascinated with the connections and learning about it and learning from the people at the Belize Zoo. And we decided then to start some pretty intense research programs and education programs through Inspired Adventures. And so we're going to talk about those a little bit today. But also, if you're listening today, if you have any questions at any point, I want you to go ahead and write them down and go to our website. And it would be a spot for you to enter those questions. And what we'll do is on our next episode, we will go ahead and answer some of those questions or put the questions and the answers up on our webpage for you to see those. So lots of questions from people. Jaguars are amazing creatures. We're all fascinated by them. And so now Kayla and I are just going to talk a little bit about some of these things. And Kayla, you really have a very close knowledge of our research projects with regards to jaguars because you manage all of our camera trap programs. So why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about why do people use camera traps, okay, to study jaguars?
Yeah, so there are a lot of different reasons that camera trap projects can be really useful for studying really any kind of wildlife. But for us, for jaguars in particular, they've been a very, very interesting project. And first of all, the cameras that we're using are trail cameras. So how they work is basically that whenever something breaks the field of vision, it will take a series of 3 photographs. And we started this project back in 2017 was when we started our first cameras. And at the time, we really had no idea what we were going to get off of it. We really just put some cameras out, just to see what we would get. And what's also very interesting to note about these camera traps is that we did not put them miles and miles into the rainforest. They are actually quite close to where humans live. And we were really blown away by how much we were able to see and how much there really was there so close to the edges of the rainforest. And there were a few things that we saw that we had no idea what they were. We had a few adjustments we had to make, especially with how the cameras were positioned. I remember our first few batches, we would see the backs of some animals or just tails sticking straight up into frame, and we had no idea what any of that was. So we did have to go back and readjust a little bit. It was a bit of a learning curve. But what we also saw was that we started to see jaguars, and not just jaguars, but also animals that could be prey of jaguars. And we also started to see some of the other wild cats of Belize. And this was really, really interesting to us because it showed that these animals, these different wildcat species, and in Belize there are 5 wildcat species. There are jaguars, pumas, also known in the United States as mountain lions. There's jaguarundis, ocelots, and margays, and we have information about these species up on our website if you're curious to know what exactly a margay is, and we might be talking about some of them in future episodes. But what we were really interested in seeing was that 4 of these species, which were the jaguars, the pumas, the ocelots, and the jaguarundis, were in some cases sharing some of the same habitats. We saw them in the same places at pretty close times to each other. And we were very, very interested in seeing that and in starting to try to figure out how these animals might be coexisting with one another. And
that's pretty rare, isn't it? That's pretty rare to find big prey species in the same area with each other, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting when we were going in to try to figure out how that might happen. And yeah, one of our co-founders, Professor Dave Cox, actually talks about this at some length in some educational videos he's made for us for our Jaguar Week program. And essentially how this can work is that these predators can coexist together for a bunch of different factors. Some of them is that the larger cats especially are very territorial for members of their own species, and so it's possible that their territories are just overlapping a bit. But the main reason is that they can focus on different prey species. So for jaguars and pumas, which are around the same size, jaguars are larger. They are the largest wildcats of the rainforest in Central America. But they do share some important prey species. But if, say, the jaguar is focusing mainly on hunting, let's say, javelinas or peccaries, as they're also known, or smaller animals like gibnuts and agoutis, which are these kind of large rodent species that do make up some significant portions of large cats' diets. And we can say that the pumas might be focusing on a little bit of a different prey species. Maybe the pumas are focusing on the white-tailed deer that are in the area. Then they're not directly competing for food with one another. And of course, these smaller species such as the ocelots and the jaguarundis are focusing on different food as well. So if you're a smaller species like an ocelot, you probably don't want to meet a jaguar. You probably don't want to run into one. And even if you're a puma, you probably don't want to run into a jaguar either. The jaguar is not going to eat you, but it would probably be a bit of an unpleasant confrontation. So all of these species are able to exist in the same area, but mostly stay out of each other's way. And this tells us a lot about the species richness of these areas of the rainforest, not just in the predators, but also in the prey species. And it can tell us about the health of the rainforest. And the other reason, the big reason that these camera traps are so interesting to us is that they allow us to actually identify different jaguars. So jaguars are interesting in that their spot patterns, their spots are also called rosettes. These spot patterns are completely unique to each individual jaguar. They've often been likened to a human fingerprint. They're that unique. So through collecting years and years of this camera trap data, we were able to start looking at these photos and start trying to match up the spot patterns. And this can be a little bit difficult. Some of our photos are taken in the day, some of them are taken at night. Some of them are taken from one angle instead of another, especially when we first started out, we only really had one camera set up in each at each location, and it wasn't until later that we started putting a camera facing the other directions that we could get photos from both sides at the same time, which has been very helpful in identification. So we were able to look at, again, several years of these camera photos collected in the same places and start to match up the spots on our jaguars that we've seen. And we have a breakdown of this up on our website of how we went in and identified these spots. But one of the really interesting things that we were able to identify, actually two different interesting things, we were able to find one jaguar, a male jaguar, that we were able to track as being in the same area for at least several years. The other really interesting things is that we were able to see that there were a few photos of jaguars that these spot patterns did not match up. So we were able to see that there were at least a couple jaguars in the same area at the same time. And this is very interesting, getting a little bit into the biology and social behavior of jaguars, because jaguars, unlike big cats such as lions or other animals like wolves, jaguars are very, very solitary species. The only time that you'll really see more than one jaguar living together is when it's a mother and her cubs. And the young jaguars will stay with the mother for a little while until they reach maturity, and then they'll actually leave and they'll go off and establish their own territories. So this was a really, really interesting thing to see, these jaguars kind of being in the same area. And when we looked into this, we were able to research a bit about jaguar territories and ask some of the experts living in Belize and working at the Belize Zoo, who are really experts in jaguar biology and social behavior. And jaguars, while they are very solitary, sometimes their territories do overlap with one another. This is most common, or theorized to be most common, with male and female jaguars, where a male jaguar's territory might slightly overlap with several other female jaguars' territory. Or sometimes jaguars move, and they can move through large areas, establishing their own territories, changing their territories as the rainforest around them changes. And this is something that we will get into as well, of why things like habitat fragmentation and habitat degradation are so harmful to larger predator species such as jaguars, and what people are doing to try to help that and to try to preserve these territories for jaguars.
Wow, I have a whole ton of questions, and I'm hoping everybody does. So let's just start off with the fact that, it is very difficult. Everybody always says when I bring student groups down there, are we going to see a jaguar in the woods today? And I just laugh and say, no, I hope not. Okay. But more important is from our camera trap data is we know what times and days these were there. And I can look to the students I'm down there with and say, there was a jaguar here last week at this time while we're standing here. So even though we're not going to see a jaguar, I can almost guarantee you that a jaguar is seeing us right now. Okay. And they're very seclusive animals. And it allows
Yes.
it allows us to see the things that we can't see because we are loud primates moving through a jungle, okay, and nothing wants to interact with us at all.
Yes,
No wild animal enjoys interacting with us in any way. So
yes, what we've been told as well when we're down in Belize is that when we're in the rainforest, the jaguars know where we are, and they really don't want anything to do with us. There have been very few cases of jaguars attacking humans, and this is largely if jaguars are cornered by humans. They're really not aggressive towards people. This does get a little bit into jaguar hunting techniques. Jaguars are ambush predators. And so what they do is that they will drop onto their prey, and they have some of the strongest bite force in their jaws of any wild cat in the world. And what they will do is bite directly through the back of the skull and the back of the neck. And this is a very, very efficient way to kill prey. And this might sound a bit scary, but a jaguar is not going to do that to a human. No. A jaguar does not want to hunt a human. We are actually a bit too big for them, first of all, and also just because we are very loud and noisy, and the jaguars really want to stay away from us as much as possible. And this is why when you see or when you hear about jaguars that are coming into conflict with humans, and when I say coming into conflict, this usually means jaguars that are coming near human habitation, usually to hunt livestock. This is usually a sign that there's actually something wrong with that jaguar. That jaguar might be sick. It might be too old to go after its normal prey. It might be injured. And this is where we get into the Belize Zoo's Jaguar Conservation and Rehabilitation Program, where all of the jaguars that they've found, they don't go out and get a jaguar just to have it in the zoo. All of their jaguars are rescues, and a lot of them are from this jaguar conflict program where they spread word to people saying, hey, if you think that a jaguar might be hunting your livestock, and this can be, of course, a big problem for people whose livelihoods depend on their livestock. The Belize Zoo will say, don't go out and try to kill the jaguar. Let us know, and we'll come and try to remove it. We'll come and try to trap it and see what the problem is. And the Belize Zoo, a lot of the jaguars that they have jaguars that have been injured by gunshots. They have jaguars that are missing an eye. They have jaguars that were rescued as cubs and so are too habituated to humans. And these are all jaguars that in many cases cannot be re-released because they would not be able to have a normal jaguar life in the rainforest. They would not be able to go after their normal prey. And so instead they stay in the Belize Zoo, and they're taken care of by the really dedicated staff there. And again, they can become these animal ambassadors. And if anyone is interested in learning more about these jaguars or meeting these jaguars, please look into our virtual tour opportunities where we can bring you live to the Belize Zoo, and you can talk with a member of the staff of the Belize Zoo and these keepers who take care of these really amazing jaguars, and learn about what they do and how they do it, and get to meet some of these cats live.
And I got to tell you, that is one of the most inspiring thing when you get a chance to see these rescued jaguars. It's the Belize Zoo really is a conservation center. They're great partners for us, and those experiences by which you see some of these jaguars, Chicky, Ben, Martin, Lindau, okay, that are been given a second chance at life. That is truly inspiring, and they are amazing animals, and they're not trained. Okay, they're not kitty cats. They still are very wild animals. It's very inspirational to do that. So I want to get into a couple other quick things here, and of course, like I said, everybody, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them, and we will definitely get those answered on the webpage or on our next episode. But, you said something before about not just jaguars, but one of the fun thing about using camera traps to look for jaguars is the other things you get. Right. Jaguars are always our exciting thing. Whenever we get new cards in, we scan them all for jaguars. I mean, it's always like jaguars. It's like Christmas, right? We're going to go find, Christmas present under the tree or something. But in this case, we're looking for jaguars. But often we have, as biologists, those moments when we're looking at something on the camera at a picture and we're looking and going, I have no idea what that is. And that is the most fun thing about being a biologist in this program. I mean, that sense of discovery. And so I remember the first time we saw a jaguarinde, right?
Yes. Or a tera, which is kind of like a very big weasel. And we had to go back and forth with some of our partners in Belize of sending them pictures. We run into this with birds a lot. So unfortunately, none of the people at Inspired Adventures are bird biologists. We are all very amateurs in this scenario. So it is always interesting when we see a new bird on our camera traps and we have to sit there and just try to flip through all the guidebooks trying to figure out what that thing is. Another one that was a very fun mystery that I mentioned a little earlier, that sometimes all we could see was the tail of an animal. What we saw a lot early on were these very skinny striped tails sticking straight up into frame and nothing else. We could not see anything else of the animal. And this drove us crazy for a while. And when we first saw them, we were looking at them like, are those raccoons? Are those raccoon tails? Both of us are from the Eastern United States, and that was the closest thing that we could think of to a match of it. And it turns out that they were actually what's called coatis or coatimundes, and which are in fact related to raccoons. But they're these little kind of raccoon-like creatures, and they kind of walk around in groups. So what we would see on the camera traps before we kind of adjusted a couple of our cameras to kind of point lower down so we would finally be able to figure out what these things looked like. We would just see, 6 or 7 tails sticking straight up, moving right across the camera's point of view. And so that's kind of the really fun parts of working on this trail camera project is that, like I said, we've been working on this since 2017, and we're still surprised by some of the things that we've seen. More recently, we were able to see a motmot, which is a little bird that kept flying back and forth across just this one camera. We've got probably 50 pictures of this one little bird, and we had never seen it before. And we've seen a lot on our camera traps. One of the things that we've never seen, I did mention that there's 5 wildcat species in Belize, and we've only ever seen 4 of them on our camera traps. The one that we've never seen is the margay. And the margays are the smallest cats, and they also spend almost their entire lives up in the branches of trees. And so we've tried, adjusting the cameras. We've tried pointing them up at the treetops, and we have yet to see a margay. So that's a little bit of our white whale, a little bit, or at least one of them. We all have kind of a list of things that we know are in the rainforest that we really want to see. I just haven't had the chance to actually catch it on camera yet. But for me, I would really like to see a margay. Just to check that off the list, but not yet, but here's hoping.
Yeah, we're getting better at that. We really are. And I think that's a lot of the fun is being able to do that and find that discovery aspect of it. If any of you who are listening want to see some of these animals, if you go to our YouTube channel, we have a couple of videos up there, animals of the Belizean rainforest, for example. We have lots of articles up there which talk about that. And we do have some videos of margays where we had to kind of cheat a little bit and actually go inside their cage at the Belize Zoo while I was there and take some videos of them. But so we do have some of them. But okay, now that we're talking about things we want to get, okay, this is where we're really coming to something interesting. So in Belize, we do know there are black jaguars. Okay, and they're kind of have almost like a mythical basis to them. Like everybody's seen a black jaguar, okay, but nobody's ever photographed a black jaguar, right? So being who you are, you're working with this stuff. They're not mythical, are they? They're real.
No, yes, black jaguars are very real. I believe there was actually one a few years back at the Belize Zoo.
There was.
But they're very rare. So black jaguars, they're sometimes called black panthers, which can be very confusing because this is also a term used for black leopards over in Africa. So they're completely different species, but they are sometimes referred to by the same term, just to make it confusing for us. But black jaguars, a black jaguar has essentially a condition called melanism. And melanin is, we have melanin, humans have melanin, and it's what gives pigment to your hair and your skin. And jaguars and really many, many other animals also have melanin pigments in their fur. And so when these pigments are overproduced, it results in a black jaguar. And black jaguars actually do still have spots if you get close enough to one, which would be very, very difficult. But if you see a photograph that's very close to one, you can actually see that their spots are just very slightly darker than the rest of their fur. So they do still have these spot patterns. It's just much, much harder to see. But for many animals, and especially many big cats, having this much, much darker fur color could be really a disadvantage, especially if you think about cats that are living in grasslands or on the plains and don't really have as much cover. You can see how this would be a kind of anti-camouflage for them. So one of the theories about black jaguars is that they're thought to be more common. They're never extremely common, but they're thought to be more common in rainforest environments, and especially in deep rainforest environments where the darker pigmentation could really help with camouflage, or at least not be harmful with camouflage. So this is really interesting, but it's also, as you can imagine, makes them a bit harder to find, because if they're deep, deep, deep in the rainforest, that's somewhere that we are probably not going to be able to find them very easily. So right now, and I know, Dad, you probably know a little bit more about this than I do, but there are some very interesting rumors of people actually near one of the spots where we've set up some of our camera traps who claim to have seen a black jaguar in that area relatively recently. And so, of course, we're very, very interested in this, and we would love more than anything to be able to see a black jaguar on a trail camera. That would be a really, really amazing opportunity. So again, not quite yet. We don't, as of this recording, we do not have any pictures of a black jaguar, but here's hoping. We're going to keep our fingers crossed and try to move some of our trail cameras around and try to position them where we can hopefully maybe catch a glimpse of this really rare creature.
I'd absolutely love to. And we are looking into those reports. It's kind of like, people saying they've seen things, but a lot of these reports are fairly reputable, okay, and come from farmers who would definitely know what they were looking at. And so we need to get cameras out there, and we're working on that. But that is really, a black jaguar would just be, that or a margay right now would just be absolutely amazing to us. We've got pumas, we got jaguarundés, ocelots everywhere, it seems.
Oh, we're bored of those by now.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I'm bored. I'm terrible. Yeah. Like I said, if you're listening, there's lots of these pictures up on the websites as well. You can go see the differences between them. Well, Kayla, I think we're about out of time. And so one of the things I want to do is, first of all, tell you how you can learn a little bit more about this. First of all, not only through our webpage, but there are some organizations in Belize which actually work very closely with jaguars, such as Panthera. There's a Panthera Belize group, and there's also the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center, which has a very, very large program and has information on their human jaguar conflict program. Here at IE, we are working very closely with the Belize Zoo to build a new facility for these jaguars which have come into conflict with people. And that's called our Habitats for Jags program. You can learn about that on our website as well and see how you can get more involved. But if nothing else, just learning and asking questions about these jaguars is really unbelievably important. We also have some amazing people we work with down there and in Belize, such as the Belize Zoo, such as some of our other partners, Arizari Belize, which is one of our resorts we work with, Sleeping Giant Resorts on the Saboon River as well. These people have been very, very helpful in helping us set up cameras and maintain them. We have excellent guides, down there. Jerson, who works with Classic Expeditions Belize, is our go-to guide into the jungle. So what I'm getting at here is that if you want to study jaguars, I'm excited because I can do it now, and I hope Kayla is too. But it really comes down to these partnerships, and so there's all different ways you can do this. You can get involved and learn about these things, and hopefully we've generated some questions that you may have that we can come back and answer for you. So,
and if we can't answer the questions, if we're not able to answer any of your questions, we will ask our partners in Belize who do know, as far as I can tell, literally everything there is to know about jaguars and really any other rainforest creature. So no matter how specific or detailed your question is, please send these in, and we will do absolutely our best to either answer it ourselves or probably more likely refer it to the experts and let you know what they say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage you to do that. It'd be so much fun. If you're doing school projects, for example, and you want to do it on jaguars, please just get in touch with us. We'd love to talk to you and see what you're doing.
If you're doing a school project and you maybe want access to some of these trail camera pictures, we have worked with schools and colleges to do projects with looking at our trail camera pictures before, and we would be happy to talk about that.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's going to wrap it up for today with our first Inspiring Animals. And I know, that I'm very happy to be able to bring you the jaguars. I think that our next episode, though, we're going to make a little bit of a change. We're going to still talk about something in the rainforest, but we're going to go for the birds this time, right? So which one are we going to work with, Kayla?
Yeah, I think next episode we're going to be talking about a very special bird called the orange-breasted falcon. And this will be talking about our partnership with the Belize Raptor Center, who have worked very closely with these birds, and the conservation story of these birds, because in Belize they're actually very, very rare and very endangered. So we'll be talking about not just the biology of the orange-breasted falcons, but also how people in Belize are trying to save these birds from essentially localized extinction.
That's right. And you're going to really enjoy interacting with the people from the Belize Raptor Center and learning about them as well. Very, very special people there. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to seeing your questions. Kayla, you have anything else to say?
No, I'm looking forward to the questions as well. And thank you for having me on to talk about jaguars today. I always love to.
Always our highlights to talk about jaguars. What a great way to start a season. And I think you're going to enjoy what we're doing for the rest of the season as well. So thank you, everyone. And we will be with you soon.